Riley's world shattered in a single email. The kind that arrives on an ordinary Tuesday and rewrites your life. The DNA test results are in, it read, and the words that followed burned into her soul. You are not biologically related to your mother. At 27, standing in her cramped Seattle apartment, Riley felt the ground vanish beneath her. She'd taken the test on a whim, a birthday gift from her girlfriend, Mia, who thought it'd be fun to trace their roots together. Mia, with her infectious laugh and endless curiosity, had already mapped her lineage back to Puerto Rican fishermen and poets. Riley, though, had only ever known her mom, Ellen, her anchor, her confidant, the woman who raised her alone in a weathered beach house on the Oregon coast. Ellen, who taught her to love the ocean's roar and the freedom of loving whoever her heart chose. Now that woman wasn't her mother. Not by blood. Riley's hands trembled as she clutched her phone, staring at the email. How could this be true? Ellen had never hinted at adoption, never mentioned a life before Riley was hers. The betrayal cut deeper than the shock, a knife twisting in her chest. She sank onto the couch, the city's hum fading into a dull roar, her mind racing with questions she wasn't ready to ask. Mia found her there an hour later, still frozen, the phone glowing in her lap. Riley, what's wrong? Mia's voice was soft, her brown eyes wide with concern as she knelt beside her. Riley couldn't speak, couldn't meet Mia's gaze. She handed over the phone, and Mia's face fell as she read the screen. Oh, babe, she whispered, pulling Riley into her arms. But Riley's body stayed stiff, her heart locked in a storm of doubt. If her mom wasn't her mom, who was she? Over the next week, Riley spiraled. She avoided Ellen's calls, letting them pile up like driftwood on a stormy shore. She couldn't face her, not yet. Instead, she threw herself into work at the marine biology lab, staring at microscope slides of plankton until her eyes burned, trying to drown the questions in data. Mia tried to reach her, leaving notes on the fridge, "Talk to me, please." But Riley didn't know how to explain the void inside her. She'd always been proud of who she was. A lesbian, a scientist, a woman carved from the same fierce independence as Ellen. Now she felt like a stranger in her own skin. One night, Mia sat her down at their tiny kitchen table, a candle flickering between them. "You can't keep running from this," Mia said, her voice steady but laced with worry. "You need to talk to Ellen. You deserve answers." Riley's jaw tightened, but Mia reached across the table, her fingers warm against Riley's. "I know you're scared. But you're not alone in this. We'll figure it out together." Riley wanted to believe her. Mia, with her poet's heart and unyielding optimism, had a way of making the impossible feel within reach. They'd met 2 years ago at a beach cleanup, Riley hauling plastic from the sand, Mia sketching the coastline for a local art project. Their first kiss had been under a full moon, the tide pulling them together like gravity. Mia was her safe harbor, but this was a storm Riley didn't know how to navigate. The next morning, Riley booked a bus ticket to Cannon Beach. She hadn't been back in years, not since she'd left for college, chasing dreams of studying the ocean. The thought of facing Ellen, of asking the question that could unravel everything, made her stomach churn. But Mia was right, she needed answers. She packed a small bag, kissed Mia goodbye, and boarded the bus, the coastal highway stretching before her like a path into the unknown. The ride was long, the scenery a blur of pine trees and misty cliffs. Riley's mind churned with memories. Ellen teaching her to fish, Ellen laughing as they danced to old jazz records, Ellen's quiet pride when Riley came out at 16. "Love is love," Ellen had said, pulling her into a hug. "You be you always." How could that woman, the one who'd shaped every part of Riley's heart, not be her mother? When the bus pulled into Cannon Beach, the salty air hit Riley like a memory. The town hadn't changed, same weathered storefronts, same gray waves crashing against Haystack Rock. Ellen's house stood at the edge of town, a small cottage with peeling blue paint and a garden overgrown with wildflowers. Riley stood at the gate, her heart pounding, the DNA test results burning a hole in her pocket. She knocked, and when Ellen opened the door, her face lit up with a smile that broke Riley's heart. "Riley! Oh honey, why didn't you call?" Ellen pulled her into a hug, her familiar scent of lavender and sea salt enveloping Riley. For a moment Riley wanted to forget the email, to sink into the comfort of her mom's arms. But the truth was a weight she couldn't ignore. "Mom," Riley said, her voice cracking, We need to talk. Ellen's smile faltered, her blue eyes searching Riley's face. What's wrong, sweetheart? Riley pulled out the folded printout of the DNA results and handed it to her. This says you're not my mom. Not biologically. Her voice trembled, anger and fear colliding. Why didn't you tell me? Ellen's face drained of color. She took the paper, her hands shaking as she read it. For a long moment she said nothing, the silence heavy with the weight of a truth neither was ready to face. Then softly she said, "Come inside, Riley. There's something I need to tell you." They sat at the kitchen table, the same one where Riley had done homework and shared secrets over tea. Ellen's hands twisted together, her eyes distant. "I should have told you sooner," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I was afraid. Afraid you'd feel like you didn't belong to me." Riley's chest tightened. "Just tell me the truth, Mom." Ellen took a deep breath. "You were adopted, Riley. Not through an agency but through a promise. Your birth mother was my best friend, Claire. She was like a sister to me. And she was like you, brave, fierce, in love with a woman." Riley's breath caught. Her birth mother was a lesbian? The revelation hit like a wave, pulling her under. She wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but Ellen's eyes were glistening with tears, and Riley knew the story was only beginning. Ellen's voice trembled as she continued. The kitchen bathed in the soft glow of the afternoon sun filtering through the window. "Claire and I met in college back in the late 80s, she said, her gaze fixed on the table as if seeing the past unfold. "It was a different time, Riley. Being out wasn't just hard, it was dangerous. But Claire was fearless. She loved openly, even when the world told her not to." Riley sat frozen, her hands clenched in her lap. The idea of her birth mother, a woman she'd never known, being like her, loving women in a world that didn't always accept it, felt like a threat, connecting her to a past she hadn't imagined. "Who was she?" Riley asked, her voice barely steady. "What happened to her?" Ellen's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes glistening. Claire was a poet, a dreamer. She had this wild energy like the ocean on a stormy day. She fell in love with a woman named Sarah, and they were inseparable. But Sarah's family, they didn't take it well. They cut her off, threatened her. Claire and Sarah moved to Cannon Beach to start over, to build a life together. That's when I moved here too, to be close to them. Riley's mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of a life she'd never known. "So I was their daughter?" Ellen nodded, her hands trembling as she reached for a glass of water. "Claire got pregnant through a donor. They were so happy, Riley. They wanted you so badly. But things went wrong." Her voice broke and she looked away, out toward the ocean visible through the window. "Sarah got sick. Breast cancer. It was fast, brutal. She was gone within a year." Riley's heart sank, a dull ache spreading through her chest. She tried to imagine these two women, Claire and Sarah, building a life together, dreaming of a child. Her. "And Claire?" she asked, almost afraid of the answer. Ellen's eyes met hers, heavy with grief. Claire was devastated. Losing Sarah broke something in her. "She tried to keep going for you. You were just a baby, barely 6 months old. But the pain, it was too much. She started drinking, shutting down. One night she came to me, sobbing, and said she couldn't be the mother you deserved. She begged me to take you, to raise you as my own. I didn't hesitate." Riley's throat tightened, tears burning her eyes. "So you just took me." "I promised Claire I'd love you like you were mine," Ellen said, her voice fierce despite the tears streaming down her face. "And I have, Riley. Every day of my life." The weight of Ellen's words settled over Riley like a heavy fog. She wanted to be angry, to scream about the years of secrets, but all she could feel was the love in Ellen's voice, the sacrifice in her story. Still, questions gnawed at her. "Where's Claire now? Is she alive?" Ellen hesitated, her fingers tracing the edge of the table. "I don't know. After she gave you to me, she left Cannon Beach. Said she needed to find herself, to heal. I got a few letters over the years, postmarked from all over New York, New Orleans, San Francisco. But they stopped about 10 years ago. I tried to find her, but she didn't want to be found." Riley's mind spun. Her birth mother was out there somewhere, or maybe she wasn't. The uncertainty felt like a wound that wouldn't close. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "All these years, you let me believe you were my mom. Ellen reached for Riley's hand, but Riley pulled back, the betrayal still raw. I wanted to, Ellen said. But every time I tried, I saw you so happy, so strong, and I couldn't bear to hurt you. I thought I was protecting you. Maybe I was wrong. The silence that followed was suffocating. Riley stood, needing air, needing space. She walked out to the porch, the ocean's roar filling her ears. The horizon stretched endless and gray, mirroring the storm in her heart. She thought of Mia, of the life they were building in Seattle, of the love that had always felt like her truth. Now, knowing Claire had loved the same way, Riley felt a strange connection, a legacy she hadn't expected. But it came with a cost: a mother lost, a truth hidden. That night, Riley called Mia, her voice shaking as she recounted Ellen's story. Mia listened, her steady presence a lifeline across the miles. Come home, Mia said softly. We'll figure this out together. But Riley, don't shut Ellen out. She loves you. That's real, no matter what a DNA test says. Riley didn't sleep. She sat on the porch until dawn, watching the waves, wrestling with the pieces of her identity. She wasn't Ellen's by blood, but every memory, every lesson, every moment of love had been hers. And Claire had given her life, had loved a woman fiercely, just as Riley did. The thought sparked something in her, a need to know more, to find the woman who'd given her this unspoken inheritance. By morning, Riley made a decision. She'd go back to Seattle, but she wouldn't let this go. She'd find Claire, or at least try to understand her. She owed it to herself, to the love she carried, to the legacy of two women who dared to love in a world that didn't always understand. Back in the house, Ellen was waiting, her eyes red but hopeful. I'm sorry, Riley, she said. I should have been braver. But I'll help you find her, if that's what you want. Riley nodded, her heart heavy but resolute. I need to know who she was. Who I am. Back in Seattle, Riley threw herself into the search for Claire. The lab, once her sanctuary, felt suffocating now, her mind too tangled to focus on microscope slides or data sets. Instead, she spent nights hunched over her laptop, scouring old records, social media, anything that might lead to her birth mother. Mia was her rock, brewing coffee at midnight, combing through archives with her, but the leads were thin. Claire's last known letter, postmarked from San Francisco a decade ago, mentioned a poetry reading at a queer bookstore. It was a fragile thread, but Riley clung to it. San Francisco's not far, Mia said one evening, curled up on their couch, her sketchbook open to a drawing of Riley by the ocean. We could go. Make a weekend of it. Maybe we'll find something. Riley hesitated. The idea of chasing a ghost across state lines felt reckless, but Mia's eyes sparkled with that familiar determination, the kind that had made Riley fall for her. Okay, Riley said, a small smile breaking through her exhaustion. Let's do it. They drove down the coast, the Pacific glittering under a rare sunny sky. San Francisco welcomed them with its chaotic charm, steep hills, rainbow flags, the hum of life. They started at the bookstore from Claire's letter, a cozy shop called Haven tucked into the Castro district. The walls were lined with books, the air thick with the scent of coffee and old paper. Riley's heart raced as she approached the owner, a gray-haired woman named June with kind eyes and a rainbow pin on her vest. I'm looking for someone, Riley said, her voice unsteady. She showed June a photo of Claire, one Ellen had given her, a young woman with sharp cheekbones and Riley's hazel eyes, laughing on a beach. Her name's Claire. She might have read poetry here maybe 10 years ago. June studied the photo, her brow furrowing. She looks familiar, but that was a long time ago. We get a lot of poets through here. She paused, then added, there's a community board in the back. People leave notes, flyers. You might find something. Riley and Mia spent hours sifting through the board's faded papers, event flyers, love notes, memorials. Nothing about Claire. But as they left, June called out, check the old open mic logs. We keep them in the back. If she read here, her name's probably there. The logs were a treasure trove, handwritten names and dates stretching back decades. Riley's hand shook as she flipped through 2015, and there it was. Claire Thompson, poet, March 12. No contact info but a title. For Sarah always. Riley's throat tightened. Her birth mother had written for the woman she'd loved, the woman she'd lost. It felt like a piece of her heart, left behind for Riley to find. They tracked down the organizer of that 2015 reading, a trans poet named Leo who lived in Oakland. Over coffee, Leo remembered Claire vividly. She was electric, they said, their voice warm with memory. Her poems were raw, full of love and pain. She talked about a daughter she'd left behind. Said it was her biggest regret. Riley's chest ached. Did she say where she was going? After the reading. Leo frowned, thinking. She mentioned New Mexico, I think. Something about a commune, a place to heal. I got the sense she was running from something or toward it. New Mexico. Another lead, another thread. Riley and Mia returned to Seattle, the weight of Claire's regret settling into Riley's bones. She wasn't just searching for a person now, she was chasing a story, a love, a loss. She started writing to communes, calling shelters, each dead end a small wound. But Mia kept her grounded, reminding her to eat, to sleep, to breathe. One night, as they lay in bed, Mia traced circles on Riley's back. You're carrying her strength, you know, Mia whispered. Claire's, Sarah's, Ellen's. It's in you. Riley turned to her, tears in her eyes. What if I never find her? What if she's gone? Then you still have her, Mia said, pressing a kiss to Riley's forehead. You have her courage. You love like she did, fiercely, unapologetically. That's enough. But it wasn't enough, not yet. Riley kept searching, driven by a need to understand the woman who'd given her life, who'd loved so deeply she'd broken under it. Weeks turned into months and the trail grew colder. Then one rainy afternoon, an email arrived from a commune in Taos. We knew a Claire Thompson, it read. She lived here for a few years, left about 5 years ago. She talked about a daughter. We might have an address. Riley's heart stopped. An address. A chance. She showed the email to Mia, who grinned and grabbed their coats. We're going to Taos, Mia said, her voice brimming with excitement. We're finding her. The road to Taos was long, winding through deserts that glowed red under the New Mexico sun. Riley gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, while Mia hummed softly to the radio, sketching the passing landscape in her notebook. The address from the commune led to a small adobe house on the outskirts of town, surrounded by sagebrush and silence. Riley's heart pounded as they pulled up, dust swirling around the car. This could be the end of the search or another dead end. They knocked, and a woman answered, her face weathered but kind. You're looking for Claire, she said, her voice tinged with caution. She's not here anymore. Moved to Santa Fe last year. But she left something for you. Riley's breath caught as the woman handed her a sealed envelope, yellowed with age, addressed simply, to my daughter. Inside was a letter, written in Claire's slanted, urgent handwriting. My dearest girl, it began. If you're reading this, you found me, or at least the part of me I could leave behind. I'm so sorry I wasn't strong enough to stay. Losing Sarah broke me, and I didn't know how to be your mother without her. But I loved you always. You were our dream, our hope. I gave you to Ellen because I knew she'd give you the life I couldn't. Be brave, my love. Live fully, love fiercely. That's what Sarah and I wanted for you. Riley's hands shook as she read, tears blurring the words. Mia wrapped an arm around her, reading over her shoulder, her own eyes glistening. The letter included a phone number, scribbled at the bottom with a note. If you ever want to talk. Riley stared at it, her heart a battlefield of hope and fear. She wanted to call, to hear Claire's voice, but the weight of 27 years of loss, of love, of questions held her back. They drove to Santa Fe, the letter tucked safely in Riley's bag. The address led to a small apartment above a bookstore, the kind of place Claire would have loved. Riley knocked, her pulse racing, but no one answered. A neighbor said Claire had been there recently, but she was often out, wandering the desert or reading at open mics. She's a poet, the neighbor said with a smile. Always has been. Riley and Mia stayed in Santa Fe for days, visiting cafes, bookstores, anywhere Claire might appear. Each night Riley held the letter, tracing the words, feeling closer to her birth mother yet impossibly far. One evening at a dimly lit poetry reading in a tucked-away bar, Riley heard a voice that stopped her cold. It was low, raw, full of the same fire Ellen had described. She turned, and there she was, Claire, older now, her hair streaked with gray, but those hazel eyes unmistakably Riley's. Claire read a poem about love and loss, about a daughter she'd never stopped loving. Riley's heart ached with every word, the room fading until it was just her and the woman who'd given her life. When the reading ended, Riley approached, her legs trembling. "Claire," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Claire froze, her eyes locking onto Riley's. For a moment neither spoke, the weight of years hanging between them. Then Claire's face crumpled, and she pulled Riley into a hug, sobbing. "My girl," she whispered. "My Riley." They talked for hours, sitting in the bar's corner, Mia holding Riley's hand under the table. Claire told stories of Sarah, of their love, of the dreams they'd had for Riley. She spoke of her grief, her shame, her journey to find peace. "I never stopped thinking of you," Claire said, her voice breaking. "But I thought you were better off without me." Riley wanted to be angry, to demand answers for the years of silence, but all she felt was a love that mirrored her own for Mia, for Ellen, for the life she'd built. "I found you," Riley said finally. "That's enough for now." Riley and Claire spent the next day walking through Santa Fe's dusty streets, sharing stories, filling in the gaps of 27 years. Claire was fragile but fierce, her poet's heart still burning despite the scars. Riley saw herself in her, the stubbornness, the way love could both anchor and unravel her. Mia stayed close, her quiet strength holding them both steady. Back in Seattle, Riley brought Claire to meet Ellen. The reunion was heavy, laced with old wounds and new forgiveness. Ellen hugged Claire tightly, whispering, "You gave me the greatest gift." Riley watched, her heart full, realizing that family wasn't just blood, it was the love that endured, the choices made in its name. Riley and Claire kept in touch, their bond growing through letters, calls, and visits. Claire sent poems, each one a piece of her heart, and Riley cherished them, seeing her own love for Mia reflected in Claire's words for Sarah. The DNA test had upended her world, but it had also given her something great, a legacy of love, of resilience, of women who dared to live authentically. One evening, Riley and Mia stood on their apartment's balcony, the Seattle skyline glittering below. Riley held Mia close, her heart steady for the first time in months. "I used to think I needed to know who I was," Riley said, her voice soft. "But I've always known. I'm Ellen's daughter. I'm Claire's daughter. And I'm yours." Mia smiled, kissing her gently. "You're everything, Riley." As they watched the stars, Riley felt the weight of her inheritance, not just the love of two mothers, but the courage to love as herself unapologetically. The DNA test had taken away one truth, but it had given her another. She was the daughter of women who loved fiercely, and that was a legacy worth carrying. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.